Welcome. This video is designed to take you through the early stages of the Advanced Modelling unit. Now, in our previous unit, you saw how to use a spreadsheet to model a situation like a computer game shop, modelling the finances, money coming in, money going out, and so on. This unit gives you a chance to see spreadsheets doing something slightly less financial. So scrolling down on our OneNote, you'll see that the first thing we're going to be doing is to create a kind of geography map model. And this video is designed to take you gradually through the creation of that model. Below that, for your assess task, you'll be producing a picture quiz. So using the spreadsheet to automatically work out which answers are correct and which answers are wrong. Now back up to our first task. You can see here what we're going to be generating. This Excel grid represents a plot of land. There's a river running down the middle, and at the moment everything's nice and dry. We've got some residential area over this side. The white squares are just dry land, and these brown areas are infertile farm, so they're too dry to grow anything, as noted here in this key. Now we also have these buttons that allow us to increase and decrease the water level, and our spreadsheet will automatically react to that. So some of these white areas will become flooded land, and the infertile farms will become fertile farms, and eventually the residential area will become flooded. Now we're going to start off by just setting up the grid, and that's the first part of this video. We're then going to put some formulas into the grid, which is the second stage, and then we're going to set up so the colour changes when the level of water changes. So it's important to follow the steps on the video as carefully as you can. So here I've started off with a blank Excel document. The first thing I'm going to do is to save that document into my OneDrive. So select OneDrive, Norton Natchball, and then give the sheet a suitable name. Now I'm using the current up-to-date version of Excel, which has autosave up here at the top, but if you haven't got that, do make sure that you press the save button as often as you can remember to make sure it's saved regularly. Now the first thing to do is to set up our grid, and we need a 10 by 10 grid. So if I select the B and then drag the mouse from the B across, it will tell me how many columns I have selected. You'll see the 10C indicates 10 columns. I can let go and then resize one of those columns so that it's square. So that's pretty close to being square. I can then select an area of 10 by 10 and pop up to the borders option and switch on the thick outside border. And that defines my area of land. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to draw the different colours in to represent the different areas. So first of all, just slightly off centre over here in the middle, I'm going to draw the river. So I'm going to select the river area and then use the fill tool to select the colour for the river. I'm going to do the same with the residential area over here. And then I want to select some random grid locations for my infertile farms. To do that, I'm going to select the first one, and then I'm going to press the Control CTRL button in the bottom left-hand corner of the keyboard. Keep that pressed down as I select the other cells that I randomly would like to be these infertile farms. You'll notice the last one appears selected and all of the previous ones appear as grey boxes. Let's go and select a suitable colour. Now I'm going to make one of these columns a similar width, so about 35 pixels, and I'm going to set up my key over here, so put in my different colours. And apart from maybe a title and a few other little things, that's more or less my setup done. So complete that stage first before playing any more of the video. Right, okay, now once the basic setup is done, what we need to do is we need to make sure that these cells can react to the water level. And so I'm going to store the water level up here. I'm going to store a value of 0, as in there is no additional water. Now as that number gets larger, we're going to get more and more flooding, and we're going to get the computer to automatically colour in the boxes based on that number. Now in order for this number to affect the grid, we've got to copy this number everywhere on the grid. Now I can put a formula into this cell to copy the value in M3. It's the simplest formula ever, and so putting a formula in, can you think what needs to be there first? Just think in your mind what the first thing is I'm going to type if it's a formula. Correct? It's equals. That means that what's coming up is a formula. But I don't need to do anything to that value in M3. I just want it to be the same as the value in M3. So I can just click on M3 and it will print M3 in that cell. And so the 0 will transfer to that cell. And if I change this number here, say to 3, then that value there will change. And that's one of the cells changed. I just need to do all the other 99 cells in the same way. So click on the cell, press equals, click on the M3, press enter, and so on. Just another 98 times to go. Well, no, that's absolutely ridiculous. Of course, there must be an easier way of doing that. Now, the problem is, if we decide to copy and paste this across, it won't quite work. And I'll just show you the problem here. So if I select this cell, copy that, and paste directly into this area here, then all sorts of problems happen. Notice all the formatting has gone wrong, because I've not only copied this formula from this cell to all of the cells underneath, but I've also copied the formatting. This kind of border around the outside has gone into every single cell. So copying and pasting, you have to be a bit careful. So I'm going to press the undo button to take myself back to my original version. Now obviously what I want to copy and paste from here to here is the formula. So what I could do is to drop down to the paste option here and just see what other options I've got. And the option that I really want to use is paste formulas. So only paste the formulas into the cell, not any of the formatting. But it's still wrong. And here you can see where the number was coming from for that first cell. As I've pasted the formula in, all of the cells have adjusted their formulas, so it's copying all of these values to these values, instead of everything coming from that 3. So how do I solve that? So to stop the M and the 3 changing, I can put a $, in front of the M and in front of the 3. When I copy that formula, the M and the 3 will be locked at M and 3. In other words, it will be always pointing at this cell. So I'm going to copy and paste the formula. And you'll notice now that every single one of those cells now has 3 in it. This cell M3 is now being copied automatically to these cells. So just to recap, the trick is to make sure that you put a $, in front of anything that you don't want to change. So I can do the same thing, copy and paste that across the entire grid, and it will still work. So paste formulas so that the formatting doesn't change. If I change the water level to 1, every single cell changes to 1. Now obviously this looks terrible, so the next thing I need to do is to make sure that the font colour matches the background colour for all of these cells. So for example, in these cells over here, I need to make sure that the foreground colour is the same yellow. Same for all these infertile farms, again holding the control key down and carefully ticking off each of these, and then finally all of the white areas. So that's the next stage to get working. So once again, complete that stage yourself, and when you're ready, we'll be able to continue the video. Okay, and now for the clever bit. We're going to make the land flood. I'm going to do that gradually, so we're going to imagine that this is a hill with the residential area up on higher ground. So this area is going to flood at the same time as this row here, because it's the same distance away from the river. So the first area that's going to flood is the area immediately to the left and the right of the river. Now I'm going to imagine that the water level has to rise to at least 2 before this area gets flooded. So we want these areas to change colour if the number hidden underneath is bigger than 1. So 2 or more. So the first stage is to select the cells that we want to change. Now I don't want to select the infertile farms. We're going to do those separately. They need to go green. Now the option I'm going to use is an extremely powerful function called conditional formatting. Now the principle is that you can create a rule like the number is bigger than 1, and you can then tell the computer which of these formatting options you wish to select. So let's try putting a rule in now. So conditional formatting. Now there are loads of options here that you can play around with, including automatic graphing within cells, loads of exciting functions. We're just going to be using very simple ones in this first row here, highlight cell rules. And we need to decide which of these rules we wish to use at this particular point. We've already said that we're looking for 2 or more, so we're looking for the number to be greater than 1. So if I press the greater than button, the computer provides me with a little pop-out that allows me to fill in the answers to the question. Format cells that are greater than 1. Now I can change that number manually if I want to, but I can also select the formatting that I want. So if I press the little drop down, if any of these match up, then I can use them, but I can press custom format. Now when I press custom format, a format cells box will come up, and this allows me to change everything about the text, including the font and the size and all that kind of stuff. But we don't need to worry about text, we're just interested in the colour. Now looking at my key, I need a light blue for my flooded land, so I need to select the font to be the same light blue, which I think is this colour. And I also want the fill colour, the background, to also be that same blue. If I click OK, and then click OK again, nothing happens. However, that's because these cells are not greater than 1. As soon as I change my water level to 2, the value changes to 2 and our land will be automatically flooded. I can do the same, of course, to produce the green on these infertile farms. So up to conditional formatting, highlight cell rules, greater than, and then using the custom format, I can match the fill and the font to the colour for my fertile farm. And so you'll see that colour has changed automatically. Let's just test, put it back to 1, and we go back to our original situation. So a water level of 2 is going to cause the land on either side of the river to start to flood. And so, yes, you've guessed it, we're looking for this row and this row to flood when the value gets to 4. In other words, greater than 3. Okay? And we're looking for this area at 6, and this side at 6. And then the residential area is going to go underwater, as well as this column when we're greater than 7 or 8 or more. And then finally, over on the extreme left-hand side, this area of land is going to go when we get greater than 9, when the water level gets to 10. So your next challenge is to do what we've just done with this, test it out on each occasion, and then to add in the additional columns, so we end up with a fully working model. Okay, so join us back here once you've completed that. Pause for the time being. Right, welcome back. Let's do a little bit of a test to see if our flooding actually works properly. So this is flood level 2, and as I say, if we go back to 1, then we're not flooded at all. Flood level 3 doesn't change anything, but flood level 4, we get the next layer up. 5 doesn't change anything, but as soon as we get to 6, we flood into the next area. 7, no change. 8, we then run into the residential area and into the next area. And then 9, no change, and then 10, finally the last area gets flooded. Now, so what if you wanted to change the rules, just make some adjustments? Well, you can highlight the grid, and you can pop up to conditional formatting, and you can select Manage Rules. And if you press Manage Rules, you'll actually see all of the different rules that you set up in a scrollable little panel here. And so notice I can see here, this is the final one for my infertile farms. And so to change one of these rules, you can just double click on the rule and you can change the rule itself and also the formatting colour. So one of my students last year decided that they wanted there to be a little bit of a change at every single value. So they decided to change these numbers so they were all different. So they did the green ones one more than the blue ones, if that makes sense. So if I click that as 10, you'll see the effect of this in a second. And this one, I can make this one 8. So greater than 8. And so on. So the green ones, I'm going to make them one number higher. You'll see the effect of this in a second. It may seem a bit strange. This one becomes 4. This one becomes 2. I can click apply. And now the difference is this. So at 1, no flooding. At 2, the area gets flooded, but notice the farms are still infertile. At 3, these farms then become fertile. At 4, the next area of land appears. Then at 5, the farms become fertile. 6, 7, 8, 9, and then 10. And this time we've actually got an 11 where that final farm becomes fertile. So we've got a little bit of a change there. You can essentially adjust it to however you like. You can even have a bendy river if you want to. And when you're ready, we'll be able to continue the video. Okay, but changing these numbers is just a pain, right? Having to type in new numbers there. So 2 approaches we can take to make this easier. The first approach is to produce a drop-down box that allows us to select the number from a drop-down. To do that, we need to have the different levels listed in next door cells. And I only have to put a few of these in before the computer is actually able to predict what I need. So I'm going to take this down to 12, okay? So I've got 0, so no flooding at all the way through to 12. So I have over here a master list. What I next do is I then tell this cell, please use this bunch of numbers as a drop-down. Okay, we do that up here in the data menu. Select data validation. Under allow, we select list, and we tell the computer in source where the list is. So we're creating a in-cell drop-down list using data validation in the data menu. Drag the mouse across the values. Notice, by the way, it's automatically put dollars in because we absolutely always want the list to come from this location. And now I can select which number flooding I would like from this little drop-down list here, which is a little bit more convenient than typing the values in. So that's possibility number 1. However, my preferred approach is to use rocker switches. Now to do this, we need to use the developer toolbar, which doesn't exist. Well, it does. It's not normally there, the toolbar called developer. To get to that, we have to right-click on any of these toolbar icons and select customize the ribbon. That's this area here, the ribbon. So when I press customize the ribbon, a big box pops up. Over here on the right, you'll see all of these toolbars, and I can switch on and off different options and change things. But you'll notice the developer toolbar is switched off. So I can press the little button here, there, click OK, and the developer toolbar will now appear. Now in the developer toolbar, we've got other things we can add onto our spreadsheet in this little insert toolbox here. Pressing the insert toolbox, okay, sticking with form controls, don't go down here to ActiveX controls, just don't go there. You will find these guys. They're called spin buttons actually. So I just click and then draw my spin button anywhere on the screen. So I'm going to put it here. And once you've put it on, you can resize it. So however small or big you want. I'm going to make it quite tall like that so I can put some labels here in these cells next door. And you can grab hold of the middle and move it around. So once you're happy, you can then click off of it, and these little buttons now exist. Now, those little buttons do not know to talk to this cell, so I've got to link these two buttons to cell M3. All right, I've got to make sure that that button increases and that button decreases the value in that cell. So to do that, I right-click and select Format Control. And out comes a little dialog box, which allows me to tell the computer all about this little rocker button. Current value, pretty obvious. All right, this rocker button has a value of 2 at the moment. I'm actually going to set that to the same value as M3 currently is, just to make sure everything works nicely. And I can select a minimum value and a maximum value. Okay, at the moment it's got a minimum value of 0, and that's the lowest value you can use. You can't go negative with these buttons. And the maximum value is 30,000. I'm just going to change the maximum value to 12. All right, so I've got 0 to 12. The incremental change is how much it goes up or down when you press the button. So I can get it to go 2 at a time if I want to. I'm just going to leave it at 1. And the most important thing is cell link. This links this particular control to the cell that we want to change. So I just click here, click on the M3, and again it tells this box that M3 is where the value will be placed when I press the button. All I have to do is click OK now. And when I press the up button and the down button, this will automatically change. So I can now flood my land just by pressing the buttons. Pretty slick. My final step, of course, is to hide M3, so no one knows it's actually there, just by selecting the font and changing that to white. So now I've got a model of the farm, which I can flood through, and I can unflood and flood and unflood at will. Okay, so lots of detail there, but that's what a video is good for. So have a go yourself, complete your model, and this is a really good way of using a spreadsheet to model a situation where, for example, something changes over time.